if the stretch of time since Jon Jones first vacated the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship in 2020 has taught us anything, it's to expect the unexpected. Most of the time, that has been a good thing, as the division has produced no shortage of excitement and volatility at the highest level, including 4 belt changes and a pair of savage title bouts that won't soon be forgotten. Yet here we are, closing in on the 3-year anniversary of Jones taking his talents to the heavyweight division, and we not only don't have a permanent champion post Jones, we don't have a champion at all. Last week's unfortunate announcement that reigning 205-pound King Jamahal Hill was forced to vacate his crown after suffering a ruptured ankle in a basketball game only muddied the waters of dissolution as to the division's hierarchy. Ever since Frank Shamrock's second submission win over Kevin Jackson in the inaugural UFC Light Heavyweight title bout in 1997, the division has undergone 4 distinct eras before the chaos that defines the current one. The first era was all Shamrock, who made 4 successful title defenses over a 2-year span before vacating the title and retiring from UFC citing lack of competition. Shamrock's exit gave way to a memorable 6-year run in which 205 pounds became the glamour division of the sport. Household names like Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Ken Shamrock, and Vitor Belfort took part in an unofficial round-robin of matchups against one another, which, alongside 2005's The Ultimate Fighter finale between Forrest Griffin and Stefan Bonner, went a long way in building marketable stars while saving the overall health of the sport. The third era featured a hot potato of title changes between 2007 and 2010 as a fresh group of future Hall of Famer fighters took turns with the belt while defending it no more than once. This began with Quinton Rampage Jackson's knockout of Liddell at UFX 71 and continued through a lineage that featured Griffin, Rashad Evans, Lyoto Machida, and Mauricio Shogun Rua all holding the title. Then there was Jones at 23 Man's Future G, dismantled Rua to claim the belt in 2011 and went on to reign for a total of 7 years despite being stripped of UFC. Record 3 times of his hardware in between for failed drug tests and brushes with the law. Still, Jones was able to dominate a particularly difficult stretch for the division, including 4 combined wins over his biggest rivals in Daniel Cormier and Alexander Gustafsson's, although the second Cormier win was changed to a no contest. Light heavyweights to successfully defend title. Besting the excitement and pageantry of the previous 3 light heavyweight eras was never going to be easy for this current group of contenders who faced a daunting task in trying to immediately follow Jones. But few could have predicted just how bizarre the aftermath would truly be, even if it has been mixed with equal amounts of highs and lows. Among the highs, of course, was the breakthroughs in perseverance by a pair of aging fighters in Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira, who each enjoyed career-defining title wins, while Blachowicz added a high-profile title defense against middleweight king Israel Adesanya. Hill, at 32, was a revelation all unto himself as he took advantage of the parity and disruption atop the division to escalate quickly from also-ran to breakthrough champion before his injury. The past 3 years also produced a series of wars in the blood and guts variety, with the 43-year-old Teixeira in the middle of both following back 2 defeats against Jiri Prochazka and Hill. And for a short time, the overnight emergence of Prochazka, who went from risen veteran to UFC champion in the span of 3 fights, all the while doing so in as recklessly entertaining a style as possible for the elite level. If there was a moment when things turned for the worse, it was the aftermath of Prochazka's insane UFC 275 victory over Teixeira, when it was revealed that Prochazka had suffered a shoulder injury so severe he was forced to instantly vacate the title last November. The division then saw a worst-case scenario play out when Blachowicz and Magomedov Ankalaev fought to a majority draw last December in their vacant title bout, which opened the door for Hill to jump the rankings and win the title 1 month later. Hill, who underwent surgery this week, has no updated timeline for his return, which is expected to be lengthy. And even though the division was recently upgraded by the arrival of former middleweight champion Alex Pereira, who fights Blachowicz at UFC 291 next week, no announcement has been formally made by UC as to whether that fight will have any title implications. What doesn't help the matter, especially for any promotion looking to one-up or
compete with UFC in the global MMA landscape is that for the first time in many years, it's fair to say the best light heavyweight in the world isn't currently fighting in the octagon. That distinction at 205 pounds belongs to Bellator MMA champion Vadim Nemkov, who coincidentally lost to Prochazka under the Ryzen banner in his 7th pro fight back in 2015. So will the best UF light heavyweight please stand up? And when exactly should we expect to find out who that fighter will be? Just like with the women's bantamweight and featherweight divisions, where titles in both remain vacant following the surprise retirement of 2 belt champion Amanda Nunes in June, the UFC has some overdue decisions to make internally. The Octagon's most prestigious and historic division is currently undergoing some seriously rough times and is badly in need of renovation. Although it's hard to imagine things at 205 pounds getting any worse than they currently are following a string of unprecedented bad luck. UFC returns to London on Saturday night for a UFC Fight Night card headlined by England's own Tom Aspinall against Marcin Tybura. The card presents opportunities for new entries into London's rich UF catalog.
London has become a regular destination for UFC's international circuit, with Saturday's card marking the 4th time the promotion has made the intercontinental trek in 16 months. It's a major acceleration of London hosted UX events. Including this weekend, the UFC has visited the city 15 times in the company's 30-year history. World champions fighting on home soil highlight real knockouts in enemy territory and career reinvention. London crowds have witnessed firsthand just about everything that mixed martial arts has to offer. Let's look back at 5 UFC London cards that should be remembered in the history books. The first visit there can only be one first, and UF 38 holds the distinction of being the first UFSEC event held in the United Kingdom. The card, dubbed Brawl at the Hall, took place at Royal Albert Hall on July 13, 2002. The event was headlined by a second meeting between UFC welterweight champion Matt Hughes v. Carlos Newton. There was controversy surrounding their first clash 8 months prior, when Hughes was trapped in a triangle choke while standing upright and slammed Newton to the mat, knocking out the challenger. It is believed, however, that Hughes did not intentionally slam Newton, but instead collapsed after being choked unconscious. Their rematch in London left no doubt as to who was the better fighter. Hughes scored a decisive round 4 TKO to defend his title and put the rivalry to rest.
38 also featured UFC's first British fighter, Ian Freeman, handing a first-round stoppage to a young future UFC heavyweight champion named Frank Mir.
Michael Bisping survives the Spider's Web. Bisping's shocking upset of Luke Rockhold to capture the UFC middleweight championship is most certainly his Cinderella story, but Britain's first UFCOC champion had another career defining moment in the fight preceding it. Bisping overcame his underdog status and endured a hellacious flying knee to defeat the legendary Anderson Silva at UFC Fight Night on Feb. 27, 2016. Bisping performed well across the first 3 rounds, but he made a grave error in the final seconds of round 3. Bisping called on the referee to retrieve his fallen mouthpiece. His lack of focus allowed the Spider to spring into a flying knee that seated the Englishman. Silva walked away and hopped the fence in celebration, but the fight had not been waved off. Silva's strike landed at the buzzer, signaling the end of the round. The break allowed Bisping crucial time to recover and ultimately win a narrow decision.
Carlos Condit calls Dan Hardy in enemy territory. There may not be a more appropriate nickname in all of combat sports than the natural-born killer. Condit's classic highlight. Real knockout of Hardy came at the tail end of Condit's most impressive career run.
Condit went 13-1 between 2006 and 2012. That memorable stint included an interim UFC welterweight title win against Nick Diaz, 4 fights as welterweight champion, and 3 consecutive knockouts against Rory MacDonald, Dong Hyun Kim, and, of course, Hardy. Hardy returned home to England following a gritty but one-sided loss to welterweight champion Georges Pierre. Condit and Hardy met in the co-main event of UF's 120 on October 16, 2010. The foes launched dueling left hooks in the final 30 seconds of the opening round,
The punches mirrored each other identically with the exception that Condit's landed clean. Hardy crumpled to the mat as Condit celebrated one of the most memorable one-punch KOs in UFC history.
Leon Edwards completes his trilogy with Kamaru Usman at home. Edwards continued England's streak of shocking title upsets by tying his series with Kamaru Usman at UFC 278 in Salt Lake City on August 2022. Edwards had fallen well behind Usman on the scorecards before uncorking a Hail Mary head kick with 56 seconds left in the fight. It brought another UFC title home to England and coined the catchphrase "Headshot Dead." Edwards VZ. Usman 3 took place 7 months later at the O2 Arena, just 2 hours from Edwards' Birmingham home. The fight failed to produce another headshot, but Edwards pulled ahead of a gun. Shah Usman. The contents of the fight won't be remembered fondly, but Edwards completing the trilogy in front of his fellow Englishmen is a moment worth celebrating. George Masvidal reboots career, hands out a three-piece and soda. Newer fight fans know Masvidal as a charismatic knockout artist, but that wasn't always the reputation associated with game bread. Masvidal had been regulated to journeyman status before his reinvention in 2019. Masvidal returned from a year and half absence following decision losses to Demian Maia and Stephen Thompson to face Liverpool's Till in London. Masvidal blitzed forward with a combination that bounced Till's head off the mat midway through round 2. It was a thrilling moment of triumph for an underdog 46 fights into his career. Masvidal's soul-snatching performance reignited his career and kickstarted a thrilling 2019 in which he stopped Till, Ben Askren, and Nate Diaz en route to capturing the ceremonial BM title. If knocking out Till wasn't enough to talk about, Masvidal found himself in a second tussle backstage. Masvidal walked away from an interview with Laura Sanko to uncork a combination on Edwards, famously dubbed three-piece and a sodo that left Edwards with a cut under his left eye. Honorable mention. UFC Fight Night, Volkov, Vez, Aspinall. The UFC returned to London for the first time in 3 years with a card chalk, full of English talent, the feverish UK crowd buoyed the likes of Tom Aspinall, Arnold Allen, Paddy Pimblett, and Molly McCann to victory. The energy at the O2 Arena was invigorating and spurred up to return 3 more times in the next year and half.